Derek here along with Romaine, and joining us now by phone, one of the hosts of HGTV's hit show, Love It or List It. Hilary Farr is with us.
Hi.
We love it. We always love it. Hilary, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. I'm in the middle of a crazy, crazy thunderstorm right now. So if you hear a kaboom, no one's actually dead yet. But any minute, you never know.
I will just assume you're at someone's house and their faulty wiring is exploding behind you.
Yeah. All right, you're right. If that's what's actually happening, I'm pretending it's a thunderstorm.
You can follow Hilary on Twitter, Hilary_Farr. And, of course, Love It or List It, Monday nights on HGTV. So, Hilary, you don't know it, but Romaine and I are super fans of Love It or List It.
Did you say secret or super?
Super.
Super.
That's good.
Yeah, we do not keep it a secret at all.
That's good.
And I have to tell you that I'm like a softie inside. I always want them to love it.
You know what? I love that you want them to love it, and I don't want you to think that that's because you're soft inside. It's because you're an incredibly perceptive and intelligent human being.
Thank you, Hilary. That's what I needed to hear.
I differ in opinion a little bit on this because sometimes I think you design amazing places, but I do sometimes think that when there are like families that have grown to where their needs really do not fit in the house that they have, I think sometimes they do need to list it. Although it would break my heart to have to list a house that you designed because you do a killer job.
Well, you know what? Okay, two parts to that. Thank you, first of all, reader design. Secondly, that's like a 1A. 1B, I have an extraordinary design team that helped me get there. Next part is, I totally agree. There's sometimes when I say, are you out of your minds? Really? This is still a tiny, weeny house. So, yes, glad as I am that they choose to stay, I have to admit there are times when I think they're crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I have to wonder, sometimes when you do that initial walkthrough in the house, do you ever think to yourself, oh, these people really should list it?
Absolutely, I do. And I think, why are they giving me all this money? Because really, I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. But ultimately, the overriding thing here is that if somebody truly, truly, truly loves that house, I mean, I have to empathize with that and try my very best to make them happy, even if I think they're wrong. So that's what I do. But
Well, and sometimes you change a house so much that it doesn't even resemble the old house at all.
that's the idea. And some of them, trust me, you really, the first thought is you should just blow it up. But, when you can transform it, it's great. It's cool. It still isn't bigger, though, sometimes. That's the
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just watching because they had the new episode of Love It or List It on Monday night, and then I got sucked into an old episode that was airing right afterward. This happens all the time. And but these people they had 5 people living in an 1,100 square foot house, and they had converted the dining room into a ground floor bedroom because the guy couldn't handle stairs. And you wanted to open the whole thing up, and
that house.
yes.
Yes.
And then they decided to list it, and I was like, oh, why didn't they just tell her in advance, like, do whatever you want to the ground floor because we're going to list it anyway? Because I mean, it'll be so much easier to sell that house if they had you'd been able to move the dining room to the ground floor.
Right.
You know what? You're so right. You're totally right. But I have to tell you that people, I don't know if, I'm assuming both of you have homes that you own, or either way you
yes.
care deeply about. It's not really rational. It isn't always rational. It isn't.
No, that's true.
No.
Why we choose certain people and we say, I know I should be with a really fabulous, rich Jewish doctor husband, but I'm crazy about this guy who, or whatever the it is. It's exactly the same thing as an emotional draw that is sometimes irrational and inexplicable, but it just is what it is. They don't really want to go.
And to this point, you deal with some crazy-ass people. How? How do you have the patience to not murder about 90% of them?
Well, I'd be out of a job. It would be so bad.
That would be bad.
Oh, I'd be in jail. I mean, unemployed and in jail. Murder's probably a tad far. I mean, a kick in the, somewhere would be good. But I breathe and I do internal dialogue, and what can I say? There are times when my jaw is so clenched that you can't even imagine. It's very difficult, and yet part of me is still always empathizing with the pain that they're going through, seeing me rip their house apart and give them nothing but bad news.
But I have to say, my favorite part of the show, and this really is true, I love it when you've kind of just had it with people who are just, their expectations are insane and they're just things you cannot do, and you kind of lose your cool on them a little bit. That's my favorite part of the show. I love that.
When I do. And sometimes I do even more than what you see, and it's on the cutting room floor, I have to tell you.
Well, you should tell the producers I'd like to see more of that, because that's the best stuff.
I'll let them know.
Yeah.
Hilary Farr is with us from HGTV's hit show, Love It or List It. You can follow her on Twitter, Hilary_Farr on Twitter. And the show airs, of course, Monday nights on HGTV. When I told my roommate that you were going to be on the show, I said, if you have any questions, submit them now. And here was his, which, of course, was it's in the forefront of all of our minds. Why is every basement that you work on a financial disaster?
I don't know. Because half the time these basements should not be living space. They just shouldn't. They're not designed like that. They're a basement. They were never meant to be living space. So really going in at this point of my career, I kind of sort of know that, and yet I think the real question is, why do you keep blundering into basements thinking you can make them work without them being a financial disaster?
I mean, are you pleasantly surprised at this point when you get a house that doesn't have a collapsed sewer line?
I'm so happy. And you know what? Right now, we're shooting a show in North Carolina. And in North Carolina, they don't have basements. It's bliss. Total bliss. I mean, no one's asking me to fix their basement because they don't have them. There was one guy who wanted a big man cave, but the reality is that you go up, you don't go down, and that's so great. But yeah, the houses we were doing, I mean, those basements were meant to be what they are, like nasty little places you stored things, and I don't know, probably you put your preserves in there, or you hid your strange uncle down there. Whatever it was, you weren't meant to make it kind of cool living space. And yet, nevertheless, we do solve an awful lot of problems by creating living space in the basement, no matter what the cost.
True.
Don't you agree?
Yes. Well, look, Romaine said it before. I mean, you do extraordinary work, you and your design team. You really do. I can't believe some of the spaces that you transform. And especially when clearly, like, the house is not functional for people, when it is a dysfunctional space and you're able to improve the flow, improve the space for people so they can actually legitimately live there and love living there. That makes me really happy when I see that.
And you know what? To be smushy mushy, I do too. I love it too. It's phenomenally rewarding. And by the way, even when they list it, just to see their faces when they walk in and they actually love it. It may not work for them anymore, but it's a wonderful feeling.
And how how legitimately competitive are you with David about whether they love it or list it?
Totally.
Yes.
So competitive with massive affection, which I hope you can tell.
Yes.
Yes.
We really, truly do love each other and care about each other, and we are just so competitive. He brings that out in me. I'll tell you, we went to buy bicycles today, just by the way, and that was before the rain came. And I went from wanting an old lady bike with a wicker basket on the front to somehow being talked into buying a skinny little tire racing bike thing just because he was going to do that. I now am going to somehow pretend that I actually am going to bicycle like a real bicycle person as opposed to a wicker basket on the front old lady bicycle, which is what I really wanted. So that's how stupidly competitive we are.
Okay.
I love it, though, because first of all, I always root for you 100% of the time. I never root for him. And I have to think that most of the audience is like that. Am I right in assuming that?
No, I don't think so. I think that
really,
them watch David and empathize with the fact that he's dealing with homeowners who are incredibly difficult to please, whether it's him or me, and where he has to try and get them to think outside of those four walls that they have grown to love and hate. It's a hard job, and a lot of people really are on his side. Not as many as that are on my side, okay, but nevertheless, there's a good.
We're all on your side.
Well, I would assume because it is HGTV, people love seeing the transformations, and so a part of what they're rooting for is they want to see this cluttered house turn into something beautiful. And David doesn't have the advantage of being able to do that when he's showing properties. He just has, like, he can show a property that's better than another property, but you don't get to see the before and after.
I agree, and I actually think his job is hard anyway, just trying to get people to really get their heads around moving.
Right.
So, I mean, I really, I feel a little bit sorry for him. I don't really deeply care that he has a hard time convincing them to list it, because that works for me, but I do think he has a hard job, and I think an awful lot of viewers do root for him. They
Right.
really do.
So do you guys keep track of how many each of you have won?
Oh, yes.
And who is in the lead?
Me? Hello.
By how much?
It's around, at this point, 40-60, with me being obviously the 60.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Hilary Farr is with us from HGTV. Their hit show, Love It or List It. It airs Monday nights on HGTV. You can go to hgtv.com for more information and check her out on the web too, hilaryfarrdesign.com and Hilary_Farr on Twitter. Let's go to the phones. We have some fans who have questions for you, Hilary. Let's start with Rachel in Massachusetts. Rachel, you're on Derek and Romaine with Hilary Farr from Love It or List It.
Hi, Hilary. I'm such a huge fan. I absolutely love the show, and I love you. You're wonderful.
Thanks.
This is very exciting for me to be talking to you.
Well, hi, Rachel.
Hi. So I have a question. So your design team is fantastic on this new season. I was wondering, though, is Desta going to be coming back into the mix at some point?
Well, I love Desta madly, and I would love to tell you that she is, but the problem is simply logistics. We are now in North Carolina,
right,
and Desta is based in Toronto. And really, she has so much going on in Toronto that it didn't make sense for her to come down here with us. So we talk. We will never be anything but great friends and work together, I hope, in the future. But right now, she's there and I'm here.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Now let's go to Barbara in New Mexico. Barbara, you're on Derek and Romaine with Hilary from HGTV's hit show, Love It or List It.
Oh, I'm so excited. I watch your show every week, and I can do marathons on all the reruns.
I do the same thing.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to move, and what would be the average cost of redoing my master bedroom, or should I just leave it alone? The bathroom.
I'm sorry, because you're cutting out.
A master bathroom, like a
master bathroom.
Yeah.
When you say redoing, there's two ways of doing it, of course, and I'm sure you've noticed this on the show. Wherever I can, I always keep the plumbing where it is. And that saves you enormous amounts of money, because then you're really just changing the look. And even if you choose, for example, to change a tub into a shower, you're leaving the plumbing where it is, waste pipes and all the rest of it, and that saves you a lot of money, and you can spend it on beautiful tile and glass frames for the shower. And so if you can keep it where it is, you're going to save money, but you're still going to look at least $7,000 or $8,000 doing it that way, depending on your tile, because obviously you can spend as much as you want. You can go crazy with the cost of your tile or stone. But conservatively, you're looking at a minimum of $7,000 to $8,000, and you're looking at an average of around $15,000.
Okay. Well, I wished you would come west. You need to come to New Mexico. It's beautiful.
I love New Mexico. Where are you?
I'm in Albuquerque.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes.
You definitely need a great bathroom in Albuquerque, so go for it, and good luck.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking my call.
You bet. Thanks, Barbara.
Hilary, I did want to ask you, what brought you guys down to the United States? Because you guys were doing all this work up in Canada. Why the change in the show?
Well, the decision was, we were talking about this for quite a long time, and one of the reasons was the disconnect between our insanely high prices for housing in Toronto, which is really where we were based, compared with the majority of the United States. There was a huge disconnect with that. Where 900,000 or $1 million will buy you a skinny little Victorian semi-detached house in Toronto, and you could basically buy a mansion for that in a huge swath of the United States. Plus, we wanted to just change up design. I mean, there's far more scope here, different housing, larger lots, it's more lush, it's just a different feeling and a different look and a different challenge.
And milder winters to shoot in.
And
True.
Definitely, that is such a good point, because apart from the pain and suffering of trying to make your lips actually move in minus 20 degrees, it allows you to shoot that many more shows, A, by not having to stop for horrible weather, and B, it looks so much nicer. Think how many of our shows you've watched where it's black and white.
Rainy and miserable.
Yeah.
Well, and I would assume that the challenges that you have with the houses in North Carolina versus Toronto are very different. We talked about the basement situation in Canada. We live here in the Northeast, so we have basements, so we deal with that. But you're also not having to deal with the same kind of insulation issues and things like that as well. So what have been the biggest challenges for homes in North Carolina that you were not seeing in Toronto?
Well, one of the issues that we have here is that the housing is generally newer stock, and the building is, from our perspective, slightly more flimsy.
Sure.
So, nevertheless, what the homeowners want is almost always exactly the same thing. It's families who want open concept. They want open sight lines. They want lavish, if possible, master bathrooms. Pretty much the want list doesn't change. And yes, you're right. So I don't have to deal with the insulation and the extremes of temperature, but I often have to deal with structure that is not that sound. So to make the changes has just completely different structural issues. That's the big change up. And the size of the houses is very different. They're much larger. Mm-hmm. So the cost of putting in new flooring is more only because you're covering way more square footage. So the finishings cost more. The scope is slightly larger. But on the whole, it doesn't change that much.
Now, who's more demanding, though? Are the Canadians that you deal with more demanding than the Americans, or are the Americans more demanding?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Americans in the north and then in the south.
Yes.
And they're very polite down here. Very polite and very lovely. And you need to dig a little deeper and work a little harder to truly know exactly what they want, because they'll often say, they don't want to upset me. And that's very nice. But I'm not actually learning exactly what they want either. So it's a different process. I'm enjoying it very much, and I truly do like them a lot. I love the politeness and the softness, but they're not as direct. So it's an interesting process. It's different. More demanding, I don't think that they're any less demanding. It's just that the delivery of the demands is different.
All right.
Interesting.
Hilary Farr is with us, home designer and co-host of Love It or List It on HGTV. You can catch the show Monday nights on HGTV, and of course catch up on the web at hgtv.com, and follow her on Twitter, Hilary_Farr on Twitter. Let's go to the phones quickly to trucker Giddy in Nebraska. Giddy, what is your question for Hilary from Love It or List It?
Hi, Hilary. Love you on the show. So what do you do with all of the clutter that is in this house that you have to change out and everything? Where do you shove it all?
It's such a good
That's
question.
a great question.
We do shove it all. We have done a show where we actually had a garage sale where we put the stuff out there and we had a huge garage sale. But when we can't do that, a lot of it the homeowners have agreed to just let go of. And what they can't make decisions on the spot basically ends up in a garage, usually. And they have to, they usually go in there, and once they see the house that's finished without their clutter, it's gone. They're happy to let go of it.
Good deal.
Happy to let go of it.
What's the grossest thing you found in a house?
Oh, God.
Grossest?
Yes.
The grossest.
Oh, my gosh. The house, did you see the house we did where there were mice?
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, and I don't mind them when they're alive. I mean, I'd rather they weren't inside the house.
Sure.
But when you find bodies and bits and, God,
In walls.
pretty bad.
Oh, that's pretty bad. All right. Thank you, Giddy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Giddy.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when people do not clean the house before you come over.
I know. I clean the house before my cleaning lady comes
Right.
over. And I'm absolutely astounded when, it's an inch and a half thick with dog hair or whatever else. But you know what? People get used to certain conditions and don't notice it anymore until it's changed. And then I hope that if you went back a year later, they would not have reverted. But I don't know. I don't have the courage to go back and find out. That
I wouldn't have the courage because they've reverted back to their old ways.
I think there's a good chance of that, but I can say that I don't know, so I'm in denial and ignorance, which is excellent.
I have a question. Of the houses that they say they're going to list it, how many of them actually sell their houses?
Well, we don't go back to find out, and I don't really know the answer to that. I do know a few that by chance, because they were living in a neighborhood that I happened to live in, and I would bump into them. I know those who had sold. Very often, certainly in Toronto when we were there, they didn't have the opportunity to buy the exact house that they'd fallen in love with that David had shown them, simply because it had already sold.
Right.
Because they had seen it, then they had to wait to see my reveal before they made a decision, and the house had already gone. Because we're in a very, very hot market in Toronto. Right. Now that we're here, it's a slower process, and they may have more of a chance to go back in and actually make their offer and buy that house. But I can't give you a firm answer on that because I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Well, I would love to see a 2 years later. Should they love it or list it again? Follow up with some of the past houses that you've redone that people stayed in.
I think you're right. I think it would be fun and sort of tragic all at the same time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's something we should look at doing. I really do.
Just because I think it would be interesting to see how people have adjusted to living in the new house. If there's something, because sometimes, they put all this money and they don't get everything that they want. They wanted whatever, a rumpus room for the kids or another bathroom or whatever it is. It would be interesting to see if 2 years later they still, want that extra bathroom or want the whatever the other thing was, and if they would put up more money for just a little bit more.
I think it would be really interesting because we all have regrets in hindsight, and we think things through differently in hindsight. And whether they say we felt we wanted to move but we were wrong, actually we should have stayed put, or the reverse.
Right.
It would be interesting. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, Hilary, it's been delightful having you with us. Seriously, we love this show.
Well, seriously, thank you for having me.
Trust me, it is our pleasure more than yours. But we love the show. And please, the next time you're here in New York, drop by and see us in studio. Everyone would die if we had a picture together. So,
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay, good. But
right.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Take care.
All right, you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Our thanks to
love her.
Hilary Farr for being with us, the greatest from Love It or List It on HGTV. Be sure to check out the show Monday nights on HGTV. Romaine and I love this show to pieces. HGTV.com on the web. Hilary_Farr with 2 R's and 1 L in Hilary on Twitter. And you can also find her website, HilaryFarrDesign.com as well. Whew. Romaine, the best.
Yes.
So excited.
Seriously. It's so rare when there's a guest that you and I both get equally excited about. But when it happens, it's just heaven. It's just a little piece of heaven for me.
See, listeners, how great the show is when Romaine and I are happy. Let's keep it that way.
So good.
Yeah, so good. Coming up next,
yeah.
We'll take more of your calls at 866-305-6887. We've got more fun to come here on Derek and Romaine.